Hi, and welcome to Class 11 of Science Fiction Filmmaking 101. Now, world building is a huge element in science fiction films. I often find that architecture being the visual element in a film which reflects on the time the story is set in. So, for the Beyond, I went with a more grounded setting, where the world is more relatable with today due to the documentary nature of the film. Now, with The Beyond being my first feature film, the budget was very limited, meaning I couldn't build sets from scratch, so therefore I took a more location-driven approach to the world building of this film. For the more intimate character scenes, I utilised home architecture to paint a picture of how the main character, Gillian, for example, who plays the head of the space agency, what that would be like to see how she lives outside of her work. And I wanted that to feel personal and be a contrast to where she usually works. So we actually ended up shooting these scenes at the actor's house to make it feel more authentic. Whereas for the astrophysics professor character, Jacob, I wanted his interior to reveal how he thinks and what his workplace is like with all the research and thoughts he is surrounded with every day. We also shot this at the actor's house and augmented it further with images of astrophysics papers, scientific equations, which related to the plot of the film. We did a lot of research to ensure it was accurate, just in case someone pressed pause and analysed the frame. It's those little details that I find, when you place in the setting, really elevates the character's personality visually and tells a story about who he is, what he does, what he's thinking, without any exposition dialogue required. For the big sequence of the Human 2.0s in the Beyond, we utilised a design and tech craft workshop at a university we found during a location recce. During the recce, I took a bunch of photographs, and then when I went back home, I annotated on photographs what the intended plan and approach was to turning that location into the futuristic robotics laboratory scene I wanted. In fact, I did that approach on all of the location during the recces, where I would map out exactly how I can make that location work with additional art department augmentation to create the vision in a cost-effective way, yet giving a high production value and look to the scene. To construct the Human 2.0 lab in the craft and tech workshop of the university, we firstly had to black out all of the existing windows and cover up existing signage and posters. We then proceeded to add tons of large cables and wires of all sizes dropping down from the ceiling beams and then connecting to various parts of the machines across the room. We also used the existing machinery in the workshop as key props of the lab by covering it with plastic transparent sheetings and then adding small blue lights from within. We actually used our iPhones to create additional lighting to bounce off the machinery to give it that futuristic look I was after. To bring the lab alive, we added some tablet screens with loopable graphics playing on the displays to really elevate that futuristic tone of the setting, but to also show that the lab is a working lab connected with some high-end tech. I wanted a surgical tech look to the room, so we added white plastic sheets around, which felt very medical, and our background actors would have white forensic type suits to match that medical clinical look I wanted. Once it was all lit practically, we had a very moody, slick-looking lab, which we can later add in our CG Human 2.0 on top of the actor's performance to really sell the scene. During the location scout at the university, I wanted to find the perfect place for my mission control, with minimal builds required. So I went straight to the computer lab floor and mapped out how the mission control was going to look like by utilising a computer tech classroom, which had rows of desks with computer screens. I then made space in front to hire several large LCD screens for the main front area screen. Along with darkening out the windows, removing posters and covering signage, we were also using the computer screen displays to light most of the room, with some support side lights when required. We were able to replicate a NASA-style mission control room, and the tightly packed nature of the screens, the desks, and the staff provided that level of mission control tension I wanted. We shot most of the mission control stuff pretty much handheld, and also used reflections by shooting through the glass partition behind the room. I wanted to reflect on the theme that we as humans are looking into the unknown via the lens of a telescope or satellite probe as we were exploring the universe. For the news anchor report scene, I didn't want to take the typical green screen studio approach you usually see in most news report scenes. I wanted depth in the background, and therefore I repurposed the top floor balcony level, which was previously used for the scenes of the space agency throughout the film, which means we were able to shoot the news anchor scenes at the same time as shooting the other scenes using that same location. Mesmerizing and awesome locations can elevate a film massively if utilized smartly, such as shooting in the Leicester Space Centre in the UK, where we were fortunate to be able to shoot against real size rockets and getting cinematic angles from glass elevators, or utilizing the layout and lighting of the museum to create backdrops for key interview scenes. All of this would have cost a fortune if we were to build this from scratch. Pushing the use of the locations, we also shot visual effects plates for the scenes, such as the Human 2.0 astronauts floating in International Space Station. Now, we shot those visual effects plates to avoid building the environment in CGI, and we shot in an actual space station module which was available in the Leicester Space Centre as part of the exhibition. In fact, a lot of the movie was rewritten during location scouting to help redesign and make use of the location opportunities we had at our disposal to tell this story and push the narrative further than we could ever have imagined during script writing. Another opportunity I grabbed instantly was when one of the visual effects artists that was working on the film told me he was off to Iceland to shoot some footage for a personal project he had been planning. So I gave him a small list of stuff I would love for him to shoot, only if he had the time and the chance to. But since he was shooting footage anyways, he grabbed a bunch of stuff for me, such as drone shots of beautiful landscapes of Iceland, which became the alien planet at the end of the film, but also more bespoke and specific stuff which was on my list, such as the POV of the Human 2.0 experiencing the alien planet for the first time. This totally elevated the film's production level massively, and also expanded the world building of this film, which, in a sense, is what science fiction is all about.